All right, so let's see let's see if this is working here. I don't know. Apparently, when waiting, we'll see. I'll just have to double check here. Let's see. This is so. It was fun. I tried to do an episode yesterday. Didn't work out so well because, well, I went and forgot to add the audio because that helps. When you add now I've got two of them, two live. What's going on? Live now. What's what? All right, something's playing. I don't know. Okay. All right. Maybe we'll edit. Maybe we won't. maybe this is working. Let's. Do I have anybody in the chat here? Let's go there. All right. So yeah, if anybody's out there other than me, feel free to pop in the chat. Let me know. Let me know what's going on. I think I'm probably the only one watching me right now. Okay, well then. Let's go ahead. Is that working? Is it showing me? Nope. That's not the one. Delete that tweet. Let's find the one that's working. Not that one. This one. Okay. Let's get some humans in here. See what happens. 21.3. All right. I don't know how that happened or how that worked, but we'll see. Okay, so welcome to the stumbling EDH study hall here at Cackling Carnarium. This is your host, Johnny Slivers. I hope we don't have as many glitches as before. I'll have to keep practicing with the whole streaming on YouTube, and hopefully the sound went through. I know I'm pretty sure I got sound, but it'll feel better when somebody pops in here and can actually help me confirm. Now, what we're doing today, as you see, I did a little more upgrading here. I've got you might see I put some I took up an image of the cryptic, was it Arcane Encyclopedia, put it in the back, and toggled things around, and it looks better. It looks better. So that's good. And I guess an update that I'm going to be making for the series of the EDH Study Hall, the original plan was to actually run this from the very beginning all the way through till the end of time. Basically, start in beta and go chronologically through. But that's maybe more appealing to the old farts like me who want to reminisce about the 1990s magic and look at old cards and all that stuff. But the truth of the matter is Eldraine will be spoiled in about a week. So I think once we're done with beta, we will plan on making Eldraine the next one and comb through all the cards in the most recent set, and once I finish that, we'll go back to an old set, and we'll kind of alternate back and forth between new sets and old sets, and we'll get both ends of the Magic the Gathering spectrum over time. So that way we can keep something current when the new shiny, flashy, fun cards are out, and then we can go back to the history of the game, and in the process of doing that, maybe stumble onto some interactions that newer players may not have had the opportunity to get them, be aware of in the first place, just because they weren't around 25 years ago, because the game is older than some of the people playing this game. That's bananas. So what we're going to do now, go back to the beta list. We left off, I attempted episode 21, and I forgot to add my audio source. So we're going to do it over again, and we're going to pick up where we left off. That was the episode 20 ended on Vesuvian Doppelganger, and Vesuvian Doppelganger was the Vesuvian Doppelganger. And Vesuvian Doppelganger is probably the Cadillac of clones. Basically, it doesn't target when it enters the battlefield, so you can clone even shrouded creatures, and then every upkeep you can change it into something else on the battlefield without paying an activation cost or anything like that. It just happens. It's a fantastic card. It's about $12, and it is totally worth it. But we're going to, I'll just give you a sneak peek. That was where episode 20 left off, was the Doppelganger right here. Let's see, am I blocking the view? It may be, let's see. So Vesuvian Doppelganger, I'll scroll that down a little bit. There we go. And then we pick up with, this episode we'll pick up with Veteran Bodyguard. A Veteran Bodyguard is an old school, this is like, basically they modeled it, the artwork, after Jean-Claude Van Damme. And we get this, let's see, did I fix that? Yeah, kind of. I'm just rewatching the, okay. So Veteran Bodyguard is, it's a 3, the casting cost is 3 and 2 white. Summon Bodyguard, I believe it's on the reserve list. If it got to revised, anything that stopped at revised and didn't get any printings after, there's a chance it's on the reserve list, so it's always good to check that out. But it is a 2/5 creature, and the way Veteran Bodyguard works is any damage, let's see, you know what, and I want to go to Scryfall for this one too, because that's got, you know, back in 1993 and 94, they were using little walls of text to describe, give complicated explanations to things that might be more basic. Sort of like, instead of using a whole sentence for vigilance or reach, they they had a whole sentence just for vigilance. Now they have vigilance. So keywords weren't around back then. So we want Veteran Bodyguard. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. All right. So, as long as Veteran Bodyguard is untapped, all damage that would be dealt to you by unblocked creatures is dealt to Veteran Bodyguard instead. So, it's an interesting card. It's a nice way of kind of staving off an aggro build, and it's like a one-shot. Basically, all the damage will go to them, and unless you've got something on it like a Darksteel Plate or what's the other one? There's an enchantment that makes it a white enchantment that makes a creature that enchants indestructible. That's a fun way to kind of like keep combat damage off of you, but it does not necessarily prevent. It won't prevent burn damage, incidental damage. Things like a Torment of Hailstorm is going to still get you. So Veteran Bodyguard has limitations in that it is counting on combat. So unblock, and that's the thing, it says unblock creatures. So even if you're taking damage from, say, a Lobber Crew, or I think it's the new Trebuchet in that's night specific for that untap effect, kind of like the Lobber Crew, they will still do damage to you. They will get around Veteran Bodyguard. So there's a limitation in how good this card is. I mean, it's still pulling $2 for a reserve list card. It's an old card. The print run's not that. There's not as many cards printed in that print run as newer sets these days, and it's going to have a scarcity to it. So I don't think the numbers are strong enough. I think we checked it, and the numbers were pretty low on EDH Rec. It's only 46 decks even reporting it. So, I mean, it's a neat idea. If you know you're in an aggro-heavy kind of meta, it might be fun to put in a white deck, but at the end of the day, it's not as strong as some of the other cards. There are better options to go. And, yeah, it's a nice, cheap defensive creature. But I think you'll find, like, there are other ways to, that's, as I'm saying, like, there's just other ways to do it. So it's good to see Erickson in the chat. Nice. He can tell me if things are sounding good, and that's the only primary concern, because yesterday I didn't have my audio. So I was just this babbling talking head for 12 hours on the internet, not saying anything. All right, so the next up after Veteran Bodyguard in our beta list is scroll. Volcanic Eruption. Volcanic Eruption, this was a curious card. It's 3 and X, and you destroy X target mountains, Volcanic Eruption. Yeah, destroy X target mountains, Volcanic Eruption deals 1 damage to each creature and player for each mountain put into the graveyard this way. This is kind of like worse Cyclonic Rift, and it's going to be kind of this if you're playing Blood Moon, like if you want to get all spiky and throw Blood Moon into a red-blue deck, or even like a teamer kind of build. This is where it could get interesting. It's almost like a more fair Cyclonic Rift because it's going to do damage to everybody. It's going to do damage to creatures and players. It's going to kill off a bunch of mountains. And if you can pick and choose, like if you Blood Moon and you know there's a couple of key tech cards like Maze of Ith or Celestial Colony, and, technical lands that do things beyond just creating mana, and you want to take them out, and you're going to play that little wonky combo with a Blood Moon, then you could do that. But it's just kind of convoluted. It's a little weird. If you don't have that in play, it ends up being a dead card unless you've got somebody that's really heavy on mountains, and unless there's like a Perforos deck or a Krinko deck, then maybe, but at that point you're playing against a deck that's doing a lot of damage as fast as it can. So this is probably not the best option. I don't think it's got the best numbers in EDH Rec. So I think I'm going to say kind of a pass unless you're trying to do something weird and funny with it and doing something to create mountains. Then maybe it's a thing. But I wouldn't really. I'd advise people against it. The artwork's cool, but that's all fine and dandy. I think it's not as strong. If you're going to try and do some funky shenanigans, and you're playing blue, you play Cyclonic Rift. As much to the chagrin of many, I'm okay with Cyclonic Rift. Sometimes a game just needs to end by people saying, yep, scoop, done. All right, so that's my spiel. Let's go back. After Volcanic Eruption, we've got Volcanic Island. One of the more expensive original dual lands, the red-blue dual land, enters the battlefield untapped. It counts as an island and a mountain, and it creates red and blue mana. And I got it. That's right. The limited edition Beta 1 version is apparently listing for $11,000 on Cardsphere. I don't know. I don't know. Now I'm curious to see if. Let's check. Let's see what Scryfall says about that one. Now I want to find out. If I were a Volcanic Island, how much would I cost on Collector's Edition? View all prints. Let's see. Wow, there's a whole bunch of them. What are we talking about here? Collector's Edition. Limited Edition Beta. Ew. Whoa. All right. I mean, it's not 11,000, but a limited edition Beta on Scryfall listing for almost $3,000. Oh, buddy. Whoa. That's pretty bananas. All right. So if you got some OG duels, I guess I should have been looking more closely at that. That's nuts. You guys look so professional. Thanks, Pixie. This is so my statement stands for all dual lands, any of the original dual lands. You're dealing with high-end secondary market value. So if you're going to play those in an EDH deck, make sure you know where you're bringing the cards. Probably don't bring them to conventions unless you've got like a security system for your cards, some kind of a lockbox that you're going to keep them in. These things will walk away on you if you're not careful, and you got to take some care when you're dealing with that kind of a deck. They're great cards if you have them. By all means, I do see like my local play group. They will proxy these in because they're so expensive. They may own a revised or unlimited version of it, but they don't want them in the deck. So we have, in at least our local group, we're okay with people like they print out a proxy. We know it's not a real card, but they have their own, so that's fine. And that's really a good way to do it. Especially like these, when they get this expensive, I get nervous about putting them into an actual EDH deck. So I would advise caution. They're great cards though. So, if you have them and you trust the people you're playing with, by all means play your original dual lands. But that's where I stand on that one. So where am I? Oh, right. Go back to the Cardsphere list and here we go. So after Volcanic Island, we have walls. Okay. So these original walls are duds, basically. Most of them are duds. They're all defenders. They all have, kind of baseline casting costs. Like there's Wall of Air, Wall of Fire. The only time they're of any use are the ones in Bant, and if you're going to put them in an Arcades the Strategist deck. So why don't we pull up at least an Arcades card and show that. so we can have that. This is the only time I think you would say these cards have relevance in EDH, is when you put them in an Arcades deck. Arcades the Strategist, the newer version of the original Elder Dragon. It's Flying Vigilance. It's a 3/5 for a 1 green, white, and blue. Bant colors. It's from M19. And whenever a creature you with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, you can draw a card. That's cool. Like, you get to draw a card off of that. And then you've got each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. In an Arcades deck, that's where something like these walls from the original core set can have some more relevance, because now the Wall of Air is effectively a 5/5 flyer for 3 mana. But that's all it is. It's vanilla. So, you're looking for something that's going to have a little more buff to it. Wall of Brambles can regenerate, but again, it's just regenerate for green, 3 for 1, 2 and a green. 2 and a green for a 2/3. Wall of Fire won't go in Arcades deck, so it's kind of a dead card. Wall of Ice, a vanilla 7/7 effect. It's an 0/7 wall, 2 and a green for basically a vanilla 7/7 in Arcades deck, but that's it. Wall of Stone doesn't go because it's red. It's 1 and 2 red for a 0/8 wall. Wall of Swords. Wall of Swords would be funky because it's a 3/5 flyer for 3 and a white, and in an Arcades deck, that is your 5/5 flyer. Nice that it has evasion, but again, still vanilla. Wall of Water is another one that could go in there. It's got a buff on it. You pay 1 and 1 blue, and you get 1/1/0. But then that's not helping in an Arcades deck, so that's kind of a dead card. So these, and Wall of Wood is an 0/3 for 1 green. So the problem with walls is they don't advance your board state, and that's the key. Like, if you're new to EDH, if you're new to Magic in general, and you're considering walls, be very critical about them, because most walls don't technically advance your board state unless it's something like Lobber Crew, or now I want to find out the name of that new one, the Trebuchet, if I can spell Trebuchet. Yeah, the Brimstone Trebuchet coming out in Throne of Eldraine. Similar effect to Lobber Crew, similar stats as well. It's a 2/4. It's 2 and a red for a 1/3 defender with reach, which is really sweet in red. And then you tap Brimstone Trebuchet, deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's nice, perfect EDH card, especially when you're playing it in some kind of a Mardu Knights build. Whenever a knight enters the battlefield under your control, untap Brimstone Trebuchet. So that's pretty sweet. So when you have a defender that does that, then it's more relevant. It fits into a special archetype. Lobber Crew is the same thing, but it does it with goblins. So that's the kind of defender you want to use in your deck, because it has something that advances your board state or your progress in the game. Most walls, unfortunately, do not do that. So I'm always going to advise caution, usually against walls, unless it's something like a Brimstone Trebuchet or something like that. So that's really the hot take on walls overall. Next up after the walls would be Wanderlust. I always had a soft spot for this card. I don't know. Some of the cards where you enchant them and they just keep doing work as the game goes on is great. But the problem with a card like Wanderlust is it's only targeting 1 player. So it's 2 and a green for an enchant creature. Wanderlust deals 1 damage to target creature's controller during that player's upkeep. So it kind of helps grind the clock out, but it only hits 1 player at a time. So it's more of a limited resource versus something like, say, Sulfuric Vortex or Copper Tablet, where those are going to do damage to all the players and just has more reach to it. It's kind of like comparing something like Black Feist to something like Iron Maiden. So Black Feist, again, does damage to players does damage to a target player based on how many cards are in their hand beyond the 4th card, as opposed to Iron Maiden, where all opponents will take damage beyond the 4th card. So if they have 6 cards in hand, they'll take 2 damage, and it applies to everyone except you. So you have to, when you're playing EDH, you want something that's going to have more reach, and a card like Wanderlust just doesn't have that reach. So that's the primary, that limitation can be problematic, and that's where I'd say it's not all that great for EDH. There's other ways for green to kind of get more damage going there. Let's see. And yeah, we'll go to War Mammoth is the next one. Again, it's a 3/3 for 3 and a green. It's a Summon Mammoth, and it has Trample. Trample is its form of evasion. That was a thing for green. And it's, I guess it used to go in Trample decks, but in EDH, always plenty of other things that do that job better. So I would say pass on that. And then I think we'll wrap up on the next one. The last card we'll cover tonight will be the Warp Artifact. Again, another one of those cards where it's going to be limited in its scope because it only targets one. This is like Wanderlust, a similar effect. It's 2 black for an enchant artifact. During the upkeep of enchanted artifact's controller, Warp Artifact deals 1 damage to him or her. And I love this card. In the 90s, I had a red-black deck where I was running these and Cursed Lands, and they were always like grinding the opponent down as I tried to get through with damage or with like combat damage or lightning bolts. But in EDH, it is a slow card overall. There are plenty of targets for it. Even if you're in a meta where there's not that many creatures, like Wanderlust is limited to creatures, but if you have people counting on artifacts like Soul Ring, this can punish people who have a soul. If like you go around the table and one person gets a Soul Ring out and everybody else is like still 2 turns behind them, a Warp Artifact on Soul Ring is kind of like a punishment for that. But even then, it's still kind of a sort of a dead card for EDH. It doesn't have the reach that you want to get the job done. So I'm gonna say, yeah, there it is. So I'm gonna wrap things up at that point. We're going to pick up again after Warp Artifact, wherever that ends up being. Let's go back. Next episode, we'll pick up on Water Elemental. Ugh. God, burn it with fire. So yeah, what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of recap what I announced at the beginning. I will go through the rest of beta, and I'm going to start toggling between old sets and new sets. So we're going to finish up beta. We're going to wait and see when. We're going to kind of keep an eye peeled for when the Eldraine spoilers are complete. And once the full list is out, we can comb through all of those cards and kind of have a casual assessment of where they stand for relevance in EDH. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to hopefully figure out this streaming a little more so it's not quite as cluttered and clumsy and dumb like the cardboard flavored waffles that it was. And I'm gonna take it, just keep at this. We're gonna get through every card in Magic. We're gonna point the eyeballs at every card. That's what's gonna happen. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. Leave a comment. Click the like button. Subscribe if you are so inclined to do so. And find me on Twitter at Johnny Slivers. You can always hit me up there for questions and comments. And that's where it is. I hope this episode has found you well. And until next time, may your top decks be epic.